I'm Taylor Hart.
And I'm Avonlea Roy.
And you guys, back in 2018, Avonlea and I got together and we did a little experiment. We created a course to help other people who have a dream to become writers. And we recorded a live series of video trainings together. And the recordings, they've kind of just been sitting out in cyberspace.
Yeah, so Taylor recently contacted me and asked me what I thought about putting this training out there in all of its messiness and imperfection, in the hope that it might help some of you who maybe has been displaced by the COVID-19 pandemic.
That's right. We have both in our lives faced hard things, and we want you guys to know we're there for you. We love you, and we want to be part of a solution. These recordings, you guys, they're totally raw and unedited, but they're 100% value. We hope you'll use them, benefit from them, and when you do write your book,
not if, but when,
then you'll let us know. And you'll share it on social media. You'll tag us, Taylor Hart, Avonlea Roy, because these are going to be coming out. They're going to be coming out right now.
All the videos, all at once, they're there. So just go and enjoy the videos, share your success with us, and happy writing.
Happy writing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lesson 4 in Taylor Hart's Secrets to Building a Six-Figure Writing Business. We have a special guest today, Jo Schneider. She's a fellow writer and an expert on character development. And so we're gonna let her give us an amazing lesson on how to really develop your characters so that your story is rich and your people love your characters.
She's good. When I get stuck, I talk to Jo.
So we'll get to her in a minute, but first, as per usual, we're gonna have Taylor give us one of her powerful lessons.
Okay, so you guys, I'm so excited because I've been thinking all week about something that I wanted to talk to you about. It's called going the extra mile. And I know a lot of you do it. If you're here, you're doing it, you're going the extra mile already. If you're watching this, but it's so vital to being a writer, and it's so vital to success. If we're going the extra mile, we're bringing a positive attitude to everything we do, right? And that's one of the first things that I've noticed. If I'm going to work with people and they don't have a positive attitude, like that relationship is over before I even start it, right? And so, like, even when I met Avonlea, I wouldn't have started this program with her if she didn't bring it, and she does. And so
thanks.
It's right? It's really important. And I'm going to brag about Jo too in a minute, but I want to also talk a little bit more about going the extra mile, because I love the phrase, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And I think that's so true, right? If you can bring it to your children, your family, your writing, your other people, then you're always bringing it. Okay, and people, there's another saying, if you want something done, give it to a busy person, right? Because they're the ones in motion. And so this going the extra mile, is doing things outside of what's required of you. I talk to my kids about this all the time, but I think about it in my own life. When I'm kind of starting to feel pity for myself or feeling bad, I'm like, okay, what can I do for someone else, right? How can I help someone else? And when you start thinking that way, it's a natural law of what you put out, you get back. And I think the confusing part for people is that you might not get it back the same way you put it out.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'll have my kids say, well, I was really nice to them and they weren't nice to me.
Right.
And it's like, but that doesn't matter, because being good, being kind, reaching out, bringing the energy, working harder, some way in the universe, it boomerangs back to you.
Totally.
And I think that's just very important in your own writing. There'll be different books you'll write and you'll feel it. And, maybe you're kind of lagging for a character or something. You have to figure out how the character can be better, how you can go the extra mile for that too, for your readers. There's some books you love, right? Why do you love them? because you can feel those characters. You can feel the strength of them. Okay, something I'm going to tell you, kind of super secret about Jo, is that she just started writing clean romance under the name Carly Stratford, and I'll let her explain to you like what that means to her, because it's cool. But she brings it. I read her book, and it's, man, I told her afterwards, I'm like, you threw it down in that book. Like, you really brought the energy to that book. So we'll go ahead and turn the time over to Jo.
Am I on?
You're on.
Hello. What am I supposed to talk about? My name? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Tell them about your pen name.
Yeah, so I write young adult science fiction and fantasy under Jo Schneider, but I figured that's not quite the readership that clean romance is. So I picked a different name for pen name, and it's actually my mom's name. So my mom's name is Carleen Stratford. That's her maiden name. So I shortened Carleen because it's a little old-fashioned and I'm not writing historical, so I went with Carly Stratford. And I think if she has dementia, so she doesn't know, but I think I think she would think it was cool if she knew, if she remembered more than 5 seconds. So anyway, so it's cool. So characters are something I learned about a long time ago. I was at a Comic-Con, sorry, very geeky, and there was a panel about Joss Whedon. If you know anything about Joss Whedon, he's done Firefly, Buffy, Angel, Marvel movies. And I was at this panel, and people kept saying how much they loved his characters. Like, if you've watched all of Buffy, it's not that great of a show.
Some people
but the characters, you do it for the characters, right? So that's when I decided I would get into character and do my best to make sure my characters pulled people into the book. So this will be a little quick because we don't have a lot of time, but
no, we have plenty of time.
Well, I have a lot to say.
In fact, I'm going to get out my notebook, so you are taking notes, because this came at a perfect time for me. I've been working on my book. I got about 3/4 of the way through.
Ooh.
And I'm at the point where I'm supposed to go back and start editing. We're going to talk about editing in a later lesson. But
Editing is a big deal.
We started talking to Jo last week about what we were going to be presenting in this lesson, and I was like, I'm not doing anything until I've got a lesson on character. So I'm getting out my notebook, and I am ready for this.
All right, well, characters need 2 things. I'm going to start with basics. So characters need 2 things. They're conflict. You need external conflict and internal conflict. Often a character will have one or the other of these in mind before they start a story. For instance, when I wrote my first sweet romance, I knew it had to be a football player. So those are some things that I had to incorporate. So that was easy for me.
Hold on a second. Hold on.
What?
I just have to let them in on why this is funny. Because you guys, I've been writing like football romance, billionaire romance, and all of this, and for years I've been saying, Jo, come over, come write.
And this is me, la 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 la.
She's like, no, I can't write that. And I'm telling you, it's a home run. Like, her book is a home run. But when she says like, oh, I'm writing football romance, it's like, it makes me happy. It makes me really happy.
It really does make her happy, guys.
Well, I'm thinking is my first romance is a football romance.
Perfect.
Oh, that is funny.
You didn't know that?
No.
Oh,
That's cool. Okay.
There you go.
Keep going. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. So conflict, external and internal. So some simple one came up with are, for instance, an external conflict could be an alien invasion. That's pretty, that's not romancy, but it's an external conflict. But could also be, let's say this person gets put in charge of their best friend's bridal shower. That could be an external conflict. Like, maybe they hate bridal showers. Maybe they don't like the guy she's marrying, whatever, right? And that leads to internal conflict, which would be, let's say, alien invasion, but your main character hates little kids and ends up with 3 little kids he's got to drag through this alien thing. So that's an internal conflict that complements your external conflict. yeah, and then for the character who is in charge of a bridal shower suddenly, maybe they are introverted and they are easily depressed, and so they have to deal with that as they're trying to help their friend. So those are some coupling things that you really have to remember to do external and internal conflict. If you don't have both, your characters won't grow. Your story won't grow properly. Just trust me, I've tried it and it doesn't work. So really quick outlining characters. I have 5 things that every character needs. And we're going to use this one again, so remember this one. The first one is just basic information about your character. So like, who is your character? A short sentence addressing age and gender and maybe their job or their position in society. So for a different romance book than the one I just wrote, Leon is a 26-year-old tight end for the Denver Storm. So he's that's his character basics. That's it. So every character also needs, and this is really important, I just helped a guy in my writing group with a story where his character didn't have a goal. So the character needs a goal or an external want, and it has to be something you can measure or say, yes, I got this, or no, I didn't. Has to be tangible, something you can get to. So for instance, my Leon, the 26-year-old tight end for the Denver Storm, his original goal was to have no commitments and no plans. He wants to experience life as much as possible. That is a goal, but I was trying to outline my story and it wasn't working. So I decided to go back and give him something I could measure. And so that was that he wants to be an advocate or a spokesperson for the Humane Society. He loves animals. He wants to help people get pets. Now that is something you can measure. Like, he's trying to get into the Humane Society and get them to sponsor him. Now he's a bit of a show off on Twitter, so that's an internal conflict. We'll get to that in a second. Do you guys have any questions about that, ladies?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Third is an antagonist. Someone or something has to get in the way of the character getting their goal. Mm-hmm. So if Leon just called the Humane Society and was like, hey, I want to be a spokesperson, and they said, yes, that's not a very good story, right? Kind of boring. Also, there's no romance in it, so there's that. So character needs an antagonist. And it can be a person, place, or thing. So mine on this one, Leon is he's a Twitter, like, diva. He throws bad things on Twitter all the time and makes fun of people. And so that's his antagonist, because that keeps him from his goal of being a spokesperson, because they really don't want that sort of personality on their staff, right?
You guys, I have to tell you too, Jo's a little bit snarky.
What?
So when she writes characters, like, I can always like hear her voice in them. I love it. Like, just when she's putting in the snark, it's a little bit fun.
Just a little snark. I get bored. There's nothing blowing up. I have to have snark. How's that? Okay, number 4 is a flaw. So nobody's perfect. We all know that we all have issues, right? And each story should be about the most important event in that character's life up to that point. And usually that addresses a flaw. So it has to be its best if it's something that combats your character's goal. An emotional block that they need to get past. So if they're afraid of fire, that's kind of their flaw. They're too afraid to face this fire. Then sometime in the story, there should be a fire they have to do something about, right? So they should complement each other. Leon's flaw, his original flaw was, again, too broad. He says and does whatever he wants, not thinking about the consequences. This is still part of his flaw. But when I got finished with my book, I figured out that really his flaw is he didn't want to commit, and that's why he does things without thinking about consequences. So sometimes you won't know all this stuff before you start.
He kind of sabotages himself.
Exactly. And you may not know that when you start writing your book, but as your character develops, you'll be like, that's what he's doing. That's what's going on. So that's his flaw. And in the end, oh, sorry, number 5. In the end, so a lot of people talk about a change in a character throughout a story. In the end, your character needs to basically make a decision that they would have never made at the beginning of the story. That's a really simplified way to put it, but that's what I always remember. And honestly, if I'm having a problem with a book, I go to that point in the book and say, what are they gonna do that they wouldn't have done in the first part of the story? And then I usually figure out what I'm doing wrong. For instance, Leon, he gets in trouble by bullying someone online for the girl he's liking, and he goes to this guy and he uses his Twitter followers to find him and apologize. Like, he never would have apologized to anyone at the beginning of the book. But this change he's been through with this girl and with himself and finding these animals actually leads him down a path so that he can find something new about himself. So those are the 5 things that I always try to at least brush on before I start writing a book, because character to me is the most important part of a book. And if I don't have that ready, then I'm in trouble. Okay, so there's that. Then we're going to talk about diving a little farther into character, because I think these are things I didn't think about when I first started, but I wish I would have. So I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully nothing will explode. Okay, is everyone ready for that?
Okay. All right, we got her back.
Oh, sorry, was I just talking to myself? Did it work? I can see it. Can you guys see it? Okay. If you guys can hear me, I'm really sorry. I'm in Vegas at a conference and our Wi-Fi is horrible. Hold on. Oh, I can see you. No.
Okay. Got her back. Sorry, everyone. We still got all of our 11 participants. It looks like we're good.
Okay.
Hang with us.
We stated what we
Sorry. Oh, no, yes.
Are you there, Jo?
I'm here.
right. Do you have to?
Okay.
Okay. Avonlea and Taylor Frozen, I can see Joanne, but no PowerPoint now. Okay.
Oh, no, I turned the PowerPoint off.
Oh, they want to know what was the 5th item every character needs.
Oh, I just call it in the end. It's that decision they would have made in the end. They wouldn't have made it at the beginning, but they will make it at the end. So I call it in the end.
Feel the change.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. All right. Hey, if everyone's good, I'm just gonna let still experiencing problems. Feel free to just.
Okay. I lost them again. I'm just gonna keep going. Hopefully they'll text me if it's not working. All right, hopefully people can see me. I'm gonna text these ladies real quick. Okay, and then we'll get started.
Okay. There we go. Okay, we got her.
Okay, there we go.
All right.
Everyone can see my screen?
We can see your screen.
Okay, I'll just keep going then, and hopefully this will work. It's probably my fault. Like I said, I'm in Vegas. Everything is sketchy here. Okay, so why do your characters need depth? A lot of people write pretty shallow characters, but readers really want better characters. So you want your characters to have depth so your readers care about them. Oh boy, let's see if this will work. Yes, okay. The ABCs of character depth. I've hodgepodged, that's a word, this together from quite a few different resources. A lot of it's taken from acting books, which I never did acting. Yeah, no, I was in the band, but they have really good character depth things. So these are my ABCs of character. The first is the accountant's view. We've already done this one, so I'll go through these and then we'll come back to each one. The second one is what I call bloodhounding, get you a little deeper. The third one is a code of conduct, which we'll of course talk about. And the fourth one is a display of mannerisms, which you will all recognize when I explain it. You'll be like, oh, that makes so much sense. Okay, accountant's view. So accountants are known for being cold. They live in a world of black and white numbers that never or shouldn't talk back, and they don't have emotions. So this is what I talked about earlier, just basic questions. Gender, age, career, maybe a socioeconomic status if that's important to the story. So we answered these before, but it's always good to have this. Now this kind of stuff you can do for all characters, and you only really need to go a lot deeper for your main characters, but you should at least have this for every character you have. For instance, so a young actress is one, just a very basic accountant's view, or a wealthy man. Those are two really simple things. No motivations, just 2 or 3 words about what they are. Not really who they are, not yet. We're getting to that. Okay, bloodhounding. This is a cute picture, right? Give a scent to a bloodhound and they will track it to the ends of the earth. They don't stop until they find what they're looking for. So as an author, you need to do this about a few things about your character. So you take one aspect of your character, and I call it bloodhounding. Bloodhound it until you come to a core value that your character has. These values do not have to be warm and fluffy. My example is, but they don't have to be. So let's start talking about the young actress. Let's ask her, because we don't really care. Being young isn't super exciting. Depending if she's like 10, that might be interesting. But let's ask her about her acting. So, there we go. What got her into acting? That's a good question, right? Where did she start? She was an understudy for Annie in the 2nd grade. The lead got sick, so she got to shine. She's never wanted to be anything else. That's something that I didn't know about her until I asked that question. So that's important, or might be important. Number 2, does she want to do stage productions or movies? Good question. Movies. And you may just have to make that decision as an author. That's hard for me sometimes because I don't want to like box myself into any sort of corner with this stuff, but you got to make a decision. So I chose movies. Has she moved to Hollywood? Answer, she's been there for a year. Next, we're going to keep going until we find something really interesting. Has she had any luck in Hollywood? She has an agent, which is good, but no good jobs yet. Okay, so when you answer that question, as an author, you might think, well, why doesn't she have any good jobs if she has an agent? So it's been a year. She hasn't landed a good job. How does that make her feel? That's a question that's an author question. You always got to figure out how your characters are feeling about stuff because that's where their motivations come from. So she's angry. She's horrible. She feels like a failure. Most people, I think, would. It's a hard life to try to be an actress. Can she go back to normal? Just start a normal career, go back to her home? That's always an option. Doesn't always make for a good story. No, I said no, just because it doesn't make for a good story unless she's going back to her first love when they were 5, something like that. Why can't she go back home? It's a good question. Her parents didn't want her to go to Hollywood. No one but her grandmother did. She does not want to have to face them as a failure. That was hard to read. That's important. When I came up with that, I was like, oh, that's motivation. Now you're really digging into why she does what she does. Is she pretty? I kind of backed off a little bit on my depth. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. Let's try another angle. Okay, is she pretty? Yes. Is she a good actress? She's pretty good. She's been working hard and she's practicing and she is getting better. So those are good things, right? We're still looking for something really good. So why hasn't she landed a job? If she's been doing everything right, she has an agent, what's going on? She isn't willing to sleep around to get ahead. So when I came to that, I knew that's a core value. We're getting to a core value, which is the C in the bloodhounding and the ABCs. So she isn't willing to sleep around. Oh, that's interesting. Why? Does she have morals? Like religion or something? She wants to earn her place, not have it given to her, like an Annie. So the very first question we asked was, why did she become an actress? But all this time, she's harbored this little bit of doubt that it was the right thing for her because she was the understudy. So that's interesting. We're going to keep going, which means she's already turned down some big jobs. Has she? She has. Is she still trying? Yes. Why does she think she can succeed? Okay, good question. She feels like her hard work will be rewarded at some point. And that's another core value. We'll get to that. How did she end up with this attitude? So some people would have stopped right there. She feels like her hard work will be rewarded, and that's her sort of value that we're going for. But I took one step further. Like, how did she end up with this particular attitude, especially if it's not moral? Something like that you'd expect to be tied to religion, so it's different. Her grandmother, who had nothing growing up, taught her the value of and the rewards that come from hard work. So this all goes back to her grandma and how her grandmother taught her from the things that her grandmother had learned in her life. So basically, she has faith in something. She believes in hard work. So all those questions, and we backed off a few times, went deeper, kind of tried different angles, come to this core belief that she has that motivates her. You may know one of these going into a story, and you might not. If you don't, that's okay. You can do something like this. If you already have a core belief, like if you started out with this, you knew this, then you'd have to say, okay, well then what does my character do because of this? It can go either direction, but often I don't have that much depth in my characters, so I have to start where we started.
So Jo, how do you come up with these questions? Like, because it's going to be different for every character, right?
Yeah, it will be. I just make them up. Like what if, why, how feelings. I just kind of try to find a thread that interests me, and I just keep asking different questions about it.
Okay. So you just have to be a detective, and you just have to get super curious about the character and just ask those questions. Do you actually write them out in your process, or are you doing this all in your head? Are you writing the questions down and then the answers? Do you type them? Like, what's your process? Because this is really fascinating.
I type it. I get bored writing by hand. Unless I'm really having a hard time, then I'll go to my whiteboard. And the whiteboard's magical. I don't know why. But usually, yeah, I'll just keep typing them until I find something that's really interesting. But I do try to keep track, because sometimes I'll find something here, that I'll then go off in a different direction looking for another like core belief or something like that. So I do write it all down, or else, because I forget. I'm blonde and I'm getting old and I forget everything.
Well, and we have a lot of characters in our head.
That's also true.
You have to have some kind of a tracking
exactly.
system. But thank you for helping me understand that a little.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions?
No, this is great stuff.
Okay. So that's B. So A was just the accountant's view, and then B is the bloodhounding view. So C is a code of conduct. So we've reached the next part of character depth, the character's code of conduct. Wow, I just said that. I'm amazing. How does what we just discovered affect our character's conduct? Now, we've talked about some of this. We're going to go a little deeper. How do we, or you, as an author, allow the reader to get to know the character through their conduct? So this is where it gets a little dicey, a little more intense for the writer. Because before this, to me, it's kind of fun. Now I have to get serious. So this last one, how do we allow the reader to get to know the character through their conduct? Make a list of things the character would or wouldn't do. Mostly I keep this in my head, but if I come up with a really interesting one, I will write it down and make a note of like something I thought about. So she probably doesn't go to really wild parties if she's not into that, to get her career going. She has turned down suitors that other girls would kill to have. So instead of messing around, she's practicing or studying. You know, that makes for a little bit of a dull character, maybe. She scolds her roommates for using their bodies to get what they want. So that may not be a positive outcome of that. Like, nobody wants a judgy roommate, right? But as you think about what she would or wouldn't do, these are things to dig into. Like, what would she do? What wouldn't she do? And why? And we already have the why. We just talked about it. We just need to know, just need more information, really. Okay, the list could go on and on and on. I would keep at it until you have a couple of good ideas and then incorporate them into your story. So, for instance, I'll go back if it'll let me. Okay, yeah. You know, her roommates this could be a whole scene. Her roommates could invite her to a party that she knows she's not going to get anything at except for drunk or whatever, or she doesn't even drink, maybe, who knows. So she turns them down, and they give her a hard time, and then she scolds them, saying, look, you guys are just going there to try to get into the next whatever by selling yourselves. It's kind of grim, but that's a whole scene right there. So all these ideas can come back and help you at certain points in your story. And now the thing is, the reader doesn't know any of this about the character. And it's our job as an author to get them to understand it through the character's conduct. Like, you're not just going to come out and say, I'm Jerry, and my grandma told me that hard work pays off, and that's how I live. But nobody, hopefully nobody, don't do that. Please don't do that. But you're going to show them through even that simple scene that I talked about, how, and you're going to show her why. No, that's not true. You're going to show your readers what she's doing, and they're going to want to know why. So they'll keep reading. So eventually we'll get to the grandma, but not for a while. Okay, so that was the code of conduct. That's really important. It's also a little thing. I don't know if you guys have talked about this, but it's show, don't tell. You want to show your readers. Okay, all right.
Great.
Later, come back to that. Put a pin in it or something. Okay, so this is also super fun. A display of mannerisms. This one I definitely got from an acting book. So a mannerism is a habitual gesture or way of speaking or behaving. So Taylor here is very much like this often. She's being very good today. I think her hands are probably tied under the table.
Not to, like, go like this the whole time.
I learned that I'm a bobblehead.
Right? Yeah. I'm looking this way. I don't know why. But when Taylor and I are together, she's like this all the time. And when I come back from hanging out with her, my husband's like, oh, you've been with Taylor. I do the same thing with my hands that she does, right?
I didn't know this, you guys. I didn't know.
This is new secret information.
Getting the smackdown.
So mannerisms are they're very habitual, and you can see them. So these are the things that Sherlock would pick up on right away. Like if you've ever watched a Sherlock movie, he'll walk into a room, and yeah, it's like, oh, your water bottle's on the left side of your desk. That means you're left-handed, which means these 12 things about you. Okay, I wouldn't get that, but Sherlock would, right? Yeah, the rest of us would not get it. Oh, typo, nice. Our young actress has a ring that her grandmother gave her. This is just something I made up. It could be anything. She always wears it and often twists it around her fingers when she's thinking or frustrated. So when these girls are asking her to go to the party, maybe she's playing with a ring and you mention it.
I like that.
Something like that. Or playing with a necklace or something, whatever. That's one possibility.
You don't even have to tell them about that the ring is from her grandmother. Just like created that gesture based on a story that you had built about her, but you don't have to like tell the reader she's wearing the ring that her grandmother gave her and she twists it around and around her finger. You can just be like, she's just like fiddling with the ring on her finger.
Yeah.
And Jo, can I say something?
Yeah, please do.
I love that kind of stuff to come out in an intimate moment with their love interest.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So she's doing that, right? And he's going, stop it. You always do. You're like, going crazy. And then, then she can say at a moment that she's revealing herself, oh, this is, my grandma gave me this ring. And, and then that leads to us finding out more. Anyway.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah. That's exactly right. No, you're good. Thank you. Or my slides were perfect the other day. I'm sorry, everyone. Awesome. She keeps her hair short when the style is long because her grandmother's hair was always short. That's also something that you could do. Just sort of a homage to her grandmother. And like Taylor said, you don't want to shove it in the reader's face. You want it to come out as the story progresses. It's kind of a hook almost that you can lead a reader along with tiny hooks through your whole story. And these mannerisms can be that. So this is a practical example, and then we'll take questions. It's silly, but it's an easy one. Okay, so let's go to the accountant's view. He is one of Santa's elves. Okay. We're going to bloodhound just a little bit. Is he a good elf? Not really, but he tries hard. Why isn't he a good elf? Well, he isn't really an elf. That's interesting, right? Why is he at the North Pole if he's not an elf? As a little boy, he stowed away in Santa's sled. When discovered, Papa Elf adopted him. If you've seen this movie, I'm sure you're with me by now. Does he like being at the North Pole? That's a valid question. Oh, he loves it. Every minute of it. So do the other elves like him? We're just sort of exploring his world with these questions, right? No, they really don't. Not very much. Why does he stay if he's not a great elf and the others don't like him? That's, all these questions we've asked. I would leave. He doesn't. He's trying to please Papa Elf by being a good elf. That is his goal, right? That's his external goal. He wants to please Papa Elf. Make him proud, right? Exactly how much does he want to be a good elf? He'll do anything. Am I right? Literally anything. Mm-hmm. Anything. These slides. Okay. He looks at every task as an opportunity to prove his elfness. This is his code of conduct. And if you've seen the movie Elf, yeah, he will, everything he does, he makes it elf, right? So he's obsessed with being good. Just obsessed with it. His display of mannerisms, well, he's loud and flamboyant, which can be kind of annoying. Matter of fact, my husband's family runs to the stores yelling, I'm singing. It's super annoying. Anyway, rubs off. He acts goofy. He acts more elf-like than any of the other elves because he's compensating for not being an elf.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is that it? Oh, I thought I had one more. I guess I don't. Okay. So that's a little elf example. And we do have some time left, quite a bit actually. Do you guys have any questions or anything you want to talk about?
What are you thinking?
No, I'm wondering if our panelists have questions.
Our participants, our attendees. Yeah.
Oh, our attendee.
So friends who are following along live in the recording, feel free to pop something into the chat window if you have questions for Jo that came up as we were talking about all of these different ways you can develop your characters. And I would say for those of you who are writing fiction, obviously this is going to be important, but even for those of you who are working on like maybe a memoir or something, those are going to be really important things for you to be able to incorporate even in a story about yourself, for you to be able to dig deep and show how all of this affected you if you're working on that. Because I know some of our listeners are working on either nonfiction memoir, or they're even working on nonfiction in terms of like self-help or things like that. So
Jo, how important do you think, this is kind of a rigged question because Jo and I talk about this all the time, but explain to them when they're telling about their character, like how it shouldn't be all at once.
You mean in a book?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, you don't want to tell them everything. Like we said, you know, she touched her grandma's ring and remembered all these things her grandma taught her, and then there's no mystery in the story anymore.
Yeah.
You don't know why your character does something.
Well, and it's easy to do, though, when you're a new author.
It is.
And we have a term for it, info dump.
Yeah, don't be info dumpy.
Don't be info dumpy. And so there's also a different term, splintering. So I love that because you think about like taking a piece of wood and cracking it, boom, and how it just splinters everywhere. And that's what I love about, you know, giving people information about your character, is you just put it in different spots. I mean, you have to, it's interesting when you start thinking about the beginning of writing, because you know, we've done it for a long time. Jo and I actually met at an author's death camp.
It was deadly.
It was deadly. But it was about 8 years ago.
Yeah.
We met, or no, yeah, 8 years ago.
Yep.
But at the beginning, Jo and I, you know, we would trade drafts all the time, and we trade with other people too. But that was one of the biggest things, is that you want people to know your character, and so you're trying to give them all this really cool information about your character, but then it ends up boring them because you have this huge section of character, and that's boring to have all at once. So
yeah,
anyway, what do you think, Jo? Like, how can they splinter that?
There's you know, it's hard. So I've judged a lot of first chapter contests, and people try to do this in the first chapter. They either have a complete action scene, like, you know, I don't know, guns blazing or ship sinking or something like that. And as a reader, I don't care because I don't know their characters. Like, I don't know why Susie should be saved. Maybe she's a jerk. I don't know. But then again, if you spend the whole first chapter just talking about Susie and how amazing she is, then you might be annoyed and not want to read the rest of the book because there's nothing else happening.
Right.
Little bits at a time is so important. I think one of the first things I ever learned about being an author and characters was to give your character something your audience can cheer for, at least your main character, your good guy. They need to have a reason to invest. And you don't need the entire backstory. Maybe, and I don't know if you guys have talked about this, but you know, the pat the dog syndrome, like at the beginning of a lot of movies or even stories, your good guy will do something nice like pet a little dog or give candy to a baby or whatever, right? In my book that...
Not smokable candy.
Yeah, right.
Cotton candy.
In one of my books, I have my main character tip the valet extra. Like, that's not a big deal, but you immediately know he's kind of a funny guy because he's been a little snarky, but he's also really nice to this valet. And we don't know anything else about him yet, but at that point, hopefully readers of romance will be like, oh, he's nice, also cute, also he plays football, so he must be amazing, right?
All right, so we have a question in the Q&A. If a character has a debilitating flaw, does it need to be resolved in the book?
Kind of depends on what story you're trying to tell.
So the first thing that comes to
Series?
my mind, sorry, go ahead, Jo.
I don't know.
So like I immediately think of the Rosie Project. If anybody's read that book, I don't know if you've read that book. Okay, so it's super cute. The main character, his biggest flaw is that he is on the autism spectrum. And so he doesn't have the ability to tap into emotion the way the rest of us would. And I don't think he's never going to overcome that. That's that's just, you know, who he is. So it's just a super cute love story about how even though he doesn't feel emotion the same way, he like logically figures out that this woman has kind of become attached to him and fallen in love with him. And if you haven't read the Rosie Project, you have to read the Rosie Project. It's darling. So
I know, but I'm thinking debilitating, like
shyness is the question.
Well, but like Jo, when you were like shyness. Go ahead, Jo.
Oh, no, I'm thinking you don't have to, but you would have to give them a wiggle room to grow a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Growth.
Yeah. Like their external goal might not be like, I'll be cured, but their external goal might be like, I want to be able to go to school without crying or something like, something like that.
And then we just had another comment here. This is probably the most important lesson for me. I truly needed this presentation.
Yay!
Thanks, Jo, for showing up and bringing it. Now, while we're here thinking about that, do you offer coaching or services for writers if they wanted some help?
I don't right now, but I maybe in the future. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm writing romance books for Miss Hart there, so I'm kind of busy right now.
Guys,
and she's a slave driver, I found out last week.
She's horrible, you guys.
I would love to hear this story again because it's a great demonstration of character.
Okay, that's true. You don't want me to tell the story?
I'm laughing about it all week.
You can tell it.
So we met at this death camp, Miss Hart and I, and we decided to do a writing retreat, right? She has kids, so she's getting away, super happy. I was single at the time, so I didn't have any like attachments. But we went to this hotel, super creepy hotel, right?
Like orange, like what's that? Twilight Zone.
Because you guys said it was in Park City.
So yeah, it is.
It's a nice place in Park City.
It was so creepy. Like we went to the hot tub, there was nobody there. There was nobody anywhere.
In the halls, like we felt like we were on a different planet.
Yeah. So we wanted to get out of the room and write. So Taylor was like, let's go to the library. And I said, okay, that's cool. And she drives by the Burger King. And I was like, we got to stop there for lunch. Because look at me, I need lunch. And she's like, what? I don't need breakfast or lunch. Information, everyone. Brand new, shiny information. So I was like, no, we're stopping the car to get some lunch. So she finally stopped to get some lunch. So it took 5 minutes for precious writing time. And then we're in the library for like 6 hours. You let me leave.
I'm pushing you off.
I didn't want to go anywhere. I was trying to finish my book, obviously.
She works hard, guys. This is why she's successful.
Bring snacks if you ever have to meet with her. Just bring your own snacks.
So this would be an example of a great character, though, like somebody who works so hard that they sacrifice mealtime because they are to succeed.
No, in all fairness, I probably was a bit extreme. I have apologized then.
Yeah, that's true.
But Jo has done several other retreats with me.
True, yeah.
That's survived.
I just loved that story, and it was such a great example of how you would show a character's values, right?
It's true.
Another comment here. Is it overkill to have the leading characters have extreme age difference and operate in different levels of society? I don't think so.
Depends on your story. Yeah, you can make it work.
How you tell it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's good conflict, too.
So we're saying we have extreme age difference and different socioeconomic status. Is that too much?
Yeah, that's like lots of external conflicts.
I was just going to say, I think those are great conflicts in a love story, but I have had different reviewers on different books of mine be like, oh my gosh, this age gap was just not realistic, and it was like 6 years. And I was
what?
Like it's 6 years,
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, Yeah, in a
I
romance.
think if you addressed it, it'd be fine. Like
Yeah.
if that's specifically what your story was about, people would be fine with it.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking like Sweet Home Alabama. Like,
Mm.
okay, you have the rich politician guy in New York. He comes from like really humble roots in Alabama. So we've already got like the socioeconomic difference, different levels of society. Would it be overkill to have him be 40 and she's 25? Is that adding too much layer of complexity? I don't think so.
I don't think so. No.
Yeah.
You're gonna find readers that will love it.
Well, and I was gonna say every Nicholas Sparks book is like the guy from the wrong side of the tracks, right? They can't be together.
Yeah.
Right.
And they make movies about his books. So
They're good. I like them. I watch them.
Okay, something came up in our conversation last week where you said, how to be mean to your character. And I don't think we've talked about it then, and we haven't talked about it now. So teach us how to be mean to your character.
Be mean to your character. Okay, so I read this book. I started out in a small press, and so I read all the books that they released. This one girl had a character whose fear was fire. Like I might have used it before as an example. And so halfway through the book, she has to go into this fire to get this little kid out. And she just does it. She's like, okay. And she walks in, and she comes out, and there's the kid. And I was like, that is the perfect moment for your character to fail.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want someone to die in your book because your character fails. But you want to be mean to your character, so make them face their fear and then let them fail. Like, if you have kids, you got to watch them fail. How do they grow? That's how they learn. So I do that with my characters as well. Like, for instance, one of my characters in one of my young adult series she's afraid of dark places. And she's little. So they make her crawl through dark places to get out of harrowing, deadly situations a lot. And that she still is not over that by the end of the series. But she's learned to deal with it enough that she can do what they need her to do. But if you take a flaw, it doesn't have to be the big flaw, find it and poke it. And then just don't let your character have nothing, like have no growth. It's so important to have growth. I read a book, I can't remember who it was, but they talked about conflict in scenes specifically. So like if your man and your woman in your romance are talking and having a deep conversation, if there's no real conflict there, even sexual tension is conflict, right? But if there's not a lot, bring some in. Make a phone call come, or some annoying person in the restaurant, or an ex-boyfriend or whatever. You got to be mean to those characters, keep them from what they want. Like reach out and almost grab it and then take it away. Then when they get it, it'll be way more satisfying. That's hard for beginning authors. I had a hard time with that. I wanted to just give them everything and make them happy. But you can't do that. Not if you want a really great story.
Yeah, because it's boring. It's boring.
Yeah.
You get everything they want. Yeah. I was also going to add to that and say, I like to kind of look at why each character is broken.
Mm.
And then through their eyes, a scene can happen and it might not even seem like it would be a big deal, but to them, it's a huge deal. Maybe they were broken, by someone leaving them. Maybe it was like after an accident and someone left them and it's been 5 years later. But what if they're out to dinner with a different guy and he just leaves in the middle? Maybe he has a really good reason. Maybe he's sick. Maybe he can't go back to the bathroom. Maybe he gets mugged in the bathroom.
Right.
She leaves and it brings up all those old, and she can't get over it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I like to see through that lens of their own brokenness,
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Being mean to characters is important. It's hard. It's really hard. Like I said, I didn't do it. My first 5 novels that I wrote that will never see the light of day, there's barely any conflict.
No.
So I just wanted the characters to be happy.
Well, this reminds me, I actually made my husband watch this movie with me a couple weeks ago, Stranger Than Fiction. There's Will Ferrell in it, and you find out that the writer is like controlling his life because she starts writing his story, and she realizes in the end, like, that this is a real person and that her writing, like, impacts the course of his life, and she plans to kill him, and she changes in the end and doesn't kill him, and everyone's like, oh, the story would have been so much better if you'd killed him. But like, she doesn't. She realizes, and she's like, do you realize how many people I've killed? Like, as she's looking back on all of her other books. But that it's interesting to think of it that way because you care about these characters and you're like, I don't want to be mean. I'm not a mean person. And so like, it's almost like an act of like feeling kind of mean yourself by telling a good story. You kind of have to go there. So you have to like find your dark places in order to be able to.
Well, and sometimes, I was actually talking last week to Jo and Avonlea about a character I'm writing right now, and he's very broken and he lost the woman he loved. And it's been rough for me to write that because having to go into his head and go through all of his grief is really hard for me. I don't like that. And I like happily ever afters.
Right.
And, but it's important. And now I have, my first draft written and I think it's pretty good, but it was brutal. I almost like quit writing it. If I didn't have deadlines and stuff, I might have just abandoned the project.
Yeah. Well, and it reminds me even of J.K. Rowling when they released the 6th Harry Potter book where Dumbledore dies. Mm-hmm. And like after this, spoiler alert, sorry if you've never read it. But there was like, I don't know, there were some interviews that came out and she was talking about how hard it was for her to write even that scene. And she said she remembered walking into the kitchen and she's like crying and her husband's like, what's wrong? And she's like, I had to kill Dumbledore. And he's like, well, then don't do it. And she's like, I can't, like it's necessary for the story. But even the big writers struggle with like, this is something that I have to do. And it's so hard because like you love the characters. And so it's just like, hey, welcome to writing. This is something universal that we're all going to have to deal with if we decide to choose this life, right?
Yep.
If you love them, be mean to them.
Kind of, yeah. Give them opportunities to grow.
Yeah. That's good.
Well, Jo, do you have anything else to add to wrap up what you've shared with us today?
I don't think so. So my husband's a big nerd. Giant nerd, right? You've met him a few times. Anyway, he likes idea stories, like those weird sci-fi stories about like, what if people could transport themselves, and then that's what the story is about. He's in the minority. I think most people read stories for character. They want to go with their character through an emotional journey, which gives us as readers hope that we also can go through an emotional journey and come out on top. And I think that's why character is so, so, so important. And when I write a book, those 5 things I gave you at the beginning, that's the first thing I do now. I do those 4 or 5 things for character and write them down, and they change. But that's what I want to focus on, is my character's journey of where they start, their flaw, and where I want them to end. And it has made writing so much easier over the last 6 months. It's the only time really when I've really started to implement this system. And it for me, it really works. Everyone is different, but it really helps me get through that hard middle to end section before the finale of your book that's sometimes so difficult to figure out. That's what that really helps me with this system does. So characters are really important. And if you write good characters, people will keep reading all of your books.
Amen.
Definitely.
So good. Thank you, Jo.
You're welcome. Sorry about the technical difficulties.
We have a couple more minutes and we have some more questions popping in. So Is this only for main characters or every character?
Ooh, so I usually do. So I'm writing these little fairy tale romances now, and I do them for my male and female lead for a romance. I'd go all the way, especially if you're going to do point of view from each one, definitely. But for other characters, you may want to go to the BC level, and for side characters that barely get mentioned, just that A level of who is this and why that might they be important to the story. And that's kind of it.
That's great.
I definitely go all the way with my main characters, 2 or 3 of them, and then
so wrapped up in doing that for every single person that shows up in your book, and then it's game over. You're never going to write that book.
That's why you could stick with that top level for most things.
Yeah. Awesome question.
What was the next question?
This went back to just the previous question, so I think we're
good here. Okay. I was gonna say, you guys, when I first started writing, I would do sheets on characters, sheets on, beating out the story, sheets on all this stuff, and then I would get to start writing, and I would have no desire to write because I knew it all so well. And so I do think it's so vital to do the character stuff, to know the flaws, how they're broken, how the growth they're going to have. But if you have so much, you just have to be careful, and you'll figure this out as you keep going, that you're not over plotting or over character, right? So that you just get to the point that you feel, oh, this is boring now,
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think the ABs do that for your main characters, and then write the story.
And we have a final comment here. Thank you for this discussion. It's exactly what I needed with my writer's block.
Yay!
That's over here.
I know, I love Jo, and I've said it, you guys, she really does. When I'm stuck, I go to Jo. So thanks, Jo.
Awesome.
Appreciate
Thank you, ladies.
Thanks for being with us, and thanks everyone. We'll see you in the next lesson.
Yay.
Have a great week.